or conversation where we get to talk with farmers and like-minded people, but especially we get to talk with a guy by the name of Neil Smith out of Canada. So Neil's got up nice and early for us. So what's the purpose of the Grow call and the Grow community? Firstly, the Grow community is about bringing farmers and consumers, suppliers, producers, anybody in that ag industry, and whether you're the end user or the start of it, bringing us together into a community, but also, more than that, being able to look at and use innovative technology to diversify our bottom line, I guess, in one way, to utilise all of the data that we're already collecting and to be able to actually utilise it and benefit from that data. And so we've got, as farmers, and so just a little bit about myself, Steve Collins is my name, and we've got a small farm outside of Warwick in southern Queensland, southeast Queensland, and we run a few head of cattle, and we grow some crops, and we play around with regenerative farming, and we try to be as clean as possible, and that doesn't always benefit us from a government perspective or a bureaucratic perspective. And we realise that a lot of farmers are in the same boat, and it's just quite often it's just really hard for farmers or people in the ag industry. It doesn't matter whether it's horticulture, it doesn't matter whether it's in the fruit industry or beef or lamb or whatever, or grains. Everyone faces very similar challenges. They're weather challenges. We've seen that recently in North Queensland and also in Central Queensland. We see that with bureaucracy challenges, and often some of those bureaucracy challenges are introduced with the best intentions. However, it doesn't always play out the best, and quite possibly when those things are created for us, they don't look at the long-term problems that could be introduced. And so we as people in the agriculture industry are left to pick up the pieces quite often, and it makes it hard. Farmers get the raw end of the deal most of the time, so carry the most risk and receive the least amount of value in return for their efforts. And so what we want to talk to, what Neil's going to talk to us about tonight, is how we can change that around, and not only just change that for ourselves, but change that for our region, our district, for our community, but broadly right across the globe, and how we can actually put consumers in contact with good, clean food and know where their food is coming from, but also have farmers being, farmers being rewarded for their efforts as they should be. And so I've just dropped out there. Let me just change the picture. Hopefully I'm still going. I'm not sure if everyone could hear me. But with that being said, I'd like to hand over to Neil. So Neil's got up very early this morning, 3 a.m. in Canada, to jump on this call and talk to us about what some of the solutions might be, real-world solutions might be for our real-world problems. So I'll hand it over to you, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. Welcome, everyone, and good evening. It's wonderful to see some new faces I haven't seen on here as we jump into 2026 and continue this great conversation around making farmers the hero of the story again, which is really an underpinning mission of Grow, and we'll get into a little bit of Grow's mission and our vision. I am based in Canada. I've done a lot of work globally in the agriculture industry. Spent a lot of time in Australia as well. So very fortunate to be speaking to all of you today. Today in Canada, it is -23. I'm currently sitting at my farm and we just had a huge snow dump. So I've got a long day of shoveling ahead of me. So I'm really just soaking in this opportunity to have a conversation, slow down a little bit. And we'll have some time at the end if you can stick around and answer any questions that you may have. Please drop them in the chat box as well as we're going through this presentation. We'd love to continue to try to bring clarity to anything that I talk about and also answer all those questions. There's been a lot of agriculture news throughout Australia that's really sort of kicked off 2026 with a bang. The unfortunate, obviously, there's been some environmental components. The wildfires going on down in the Victoria region. The National Farmers Federation has launched a $4 billion fund to help with conservation, and some of that is around regenerative agriculture, which I think is wonderful. For some of you following in the Grow social platforms or our education platform, and for those of you newer, we have an education platform called the Grow School. I just recently posted in there, I did some research and some stats analysis. So for every $1 of food that we purchase, either direct from farm or at the grocer, there's about $3 that comes off of your taxes to go fix our ecological environment. And so whether that's soils or water. And so we really need to be thinking about moving towards regenerative agriculture or systems that are going to leave our ecological land in a better spot than we found it, particularly for those that are raising and growing or stewarding our lands. As consumers, we need to be conscious about where we're buying our food from so that we can continue to support those that are really trying to steward the land in the best possible way. And that's another reason Grow is around, is really to try to help spur on these conversations and even flip the script with some of the conventional thinking around our agriculture systems. So today we're going to talk about the Grow platform, which is a Web3 platform. It's a modern tool or an emerging technology, and it's really designed to help everyone in the supply chain, but primarily farmers, so that we can give you more sovereignty, more leverage point, more opportunity, and bring you back from the edge of the cliff where a lot of farmers find themselves today. So we know the realities. I just mentioned some of them. The market space, it continues to shrink. It continues to be something that causes a lot of concern. If you're in the sheep industry in Australia, you know, your labor costs have just gone up significantly, and so you're having to comply with that. We've had some trade in textile wool that's also shifted. And so, you know, this is an area where data speaks volumes. Data is really going to help you have different conversations and even initiate different contractual agreements all around the amazing products that you're either raising or growing. Weather is a continual issue. We don't have any control over that. All we can do is create resiliency on our farm systems in our operations so that we can weather through that more effectively. I talk about the snow like it's a bad thing. I love it because in Canada, it brings a lot of moisture. I know in Australia, you want some of that in some areas. I have FOMO when I look at the Australian weather sometimes in terms of the warmer climates, but we need a mixture. So if we have too much snow, it's not good. If we have too much water, it's not good. If we have too dry conditions, it's not good. Australia and Canada, by the way, there's a lot of Australia and Canada in terms of our farming conditions that are very, very similar. We have a lot of reciprocity, a lot of trade, and a lot of agriculture knowledge share because of the similarity that goes on. But weather is something that we need to continuously try to prepare ourselves for so that we have resiliency. And then government. This is where it gets exciting. So there's a lot of government oversight. And whether it's well-intentioned or otherwise, that isn't the point of Grow. The point of Grow is so that we can flip the script in our conversations with these regulatory parties using something that is defensible, irrefutable, and really allows you to have a little more power or autonomy as we enter into these conversations. And it really needs to start either sort of top down or bottom up, depending on which direction you're sitting and looking. We need to start the conversations around things that everyone is pointing to, which is data. And data held in a blockchain allows it to be held in what we call a tamper-proof or immutable state. The other component that happens in the farming industry, particularly in Australia, is obviously the human cost. The human cost to farming is significant, and whether that's financial strain, mental health, isolation, as we're out in the fields. I know, whenever I get frustrated, my first thing is to go out in the field and try to repair something that needs fixing or tend to the cattle. It's a de-stressor for me, but it can also be very isolating, and it plays a huge component on our mental welfare. And so if you look at that stat on the left-hand side, this is a stat that I particularly want to change. We don't want to lose any farmers because they're trying to scratch a living, because they're trying to grow or raise our food. We really do need to bring more prosperity and more opportunity back to our agriculture sector. And if that just means grow can allow a little more breathing room under your collar as a starting spot so that you feel less stressed, so you have more outlets, so you have a community to lean into, I feel like we're moving in the right direction. And so this is something that is very much front and center in all the work that we do at Grow, particularly our community. And I think we have an amazing community that really is here to support the human component of farming. We notice the problems today: big centralized conglomerates. Big centralized conglomerates pretty much control our food system globally, as well as our consumer brands that go beyond food and into the textile industry, into the fashion industry, even into our electronic industry. There's things that we have that are coming off of our land, go into the wonderful devices like we're using today, computers. But they're all, pretty much controlled by central entities. Specifically for the food component, what we really need to do is start to shake this up. We call that a work towards decentralization. So how do we look at these large entities and how do we start working with them? Well, we're not going to do it by simply creating a new economy and pointing fingers at them. What we need to do is create that new economy and that new railway, but also start to have different conversations. These large conglomerates, by the way, they're pretty much set up to decentralize. They just haven't been presented a solution before. And so, yes, we can point fingers, and yes, we can be angry, and yes, we can be upset at the over-processing of food and, the control factor and the strong arming that happens. But we can also now, with Grow, with the blockchain, with our tool set, go in and toe the line and have different conversations, really shake things up, shake the bush, as it were, so that we can start to work with these central entities, which aren't going anywhere fast, and create new outcomes. And that's really exciting for me. So who am I? I've talked a little bit about where I'm located. I've been in agriculture my whole life. I grew up on a farm, still own and operate a smallhold farm, a 200-acre operation in Canada. I've had the privilege of working globally within the agriculture market space. I ran a consultancy for a number of years, helping farmers and ranchers diversify their balance sheet. And today with Grow, I get to take that same knowledge base, and I just get to do it with a little more speed and expectancy, and some better technology. And so we can really create a lot of momentum, and I'm really, really excited about that. And so I've done everything from livestock to grain to CEA, which is controlled environment agriculture. I've gotten involved in a little bit of aquaculture, and so agriculture within the oceans. I've also had a lot of components to, or an opportunities, I should say, to bring in different solutions within our operations, whether that's renewable energies, whether that's thinking about creating byproducts, biochar being one of them, on site, to continue to bring different GL lines or different revenue streams within your balance sheet on your farms. And so I'm really excited to continue to bring this knowledge to you alongside the emerging technology, which is Grow. So my wife, she grew up in South Africa. Actually, she grew up in a sugarcane operation. Her family is 6th generation South African. She really gives me a different perspective. She grew up during a little time called apartheid. So there was a lot of segregation. And it's very interesting to me how their communities, centered around food, breaking bread, and, food was such a component of socialization. And so when we think about the agri-food industry, we often talk about consumers and we often talk about the farmers, but we sometimes forget about the people in the middle that are really creating the social component, and call that the hospitality industry as a whole. And so I love the perspective that she continues to challenge me with. We have the fortunate opportunity to go back to South Africa and visit with family now. And it's really, really interesting also to see and taste food that is so different. So she actually is wheat intolerant in Canada, but in South Africa, she can eat wheat. It doesn't upset her body. And the component there isn't the wheat. It isn't even the gluten. It has to do with the chemistries or how we're growing that food or how it's processed. And that really stands out to me on a regular basis. And so she's just an amazing person. I can't speak highly of her. This is where I'm currently located. I'm sitting in this little black house, fully passive, off-grid house. I've got a lot more white stuff around me than the picture in the center. And I also own some Highland cattle. That's what I grew up with. And yes, we do have a yurt on site for visitors. They get to stay out there. I get to stay in the nice, cozy house. But it is a wonderful spot that I'm privileged to call home. I have done a lot of things. I do a lot of speaking. I just got back from a conference over the weekend in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, which is a province side where I'm currently located. Speaking to actually a lot of hospitality folk. I've spoken on stage with a group in the US called MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. No political ties, simply around food is health, the food component, and why it's so important to have agriculture as part of that conversation. I host a podcast. If you know anyone that you think would be valuable to be on the podcast and have a conversation, particularly in Australia, please reach out. I'd love to have conversations. This could be anyone in the agri-food value chain, and this is really an organic conversation about what's going on. This isn't a hard pitch or a hard sell, nor is this presentation today, by the way. This is really about trying to understand what's going on in Australian agriculture and how we can better compartmentalize that and look at grow as an opportunity to help counter some of the constraint points. I also do some designing, passive solar greenhouses, get involved in mechanical, so I don't spend a lot of time behind the laptop, though I love being able to present and talk to folks around the world. I brought some amazing technology to the market space. The only reason I mention this isn't to put a feather in my cap, is that as we bring grow into Australia, I do have some expertise around technology and how it fits into agriculture, and all the different software platforms that are currently in use and how we can integrate them into the Grow platform to give them more power, more opportunities to give you more sovereignty over your data. So whether that's huge 27-inch augers moving a lot of grain, whether that's recapturing diesel and creating carbon water out of that diesel, or whether that's using technology to scan macro and micronutrients as well as carbon in the soil without soil disturbance. All these things I've had the privilege of having a hand in and bringing to market. I also get involved in the processing. I've got a little roastery in Toronto, Canada that we're very fortunate to bring some great green beans over and turn them into wonderful, delicious coffee. And yes, my environment does look a little bit different in Canada, but no different than you in Australia, doing things in the field, having some amazing opportunities to get into the environment. Very important for us, our human health, to ensure that we take in nature, breathe it in, and really just sort of be surrendered to its awe that it continues to provide. But I want you to pay attention to the image on the left, integration. I don't think anything in agriculture should be a mono anything. And whether that's a field full of solar panels or whether it's a field full of canola, wheat, doesn't really matter, or animals, everything needs to be integrated. And it's about that diversity and that integration that really allows us to prosper. This picture here, I only like to mention it that we have so many conversations around tariffs these days and trade and war and all the unfortunate things that go on with some of the political shifting, the New World Order conversations. But there's a farmer on the Canadian side of this borderline and on the American side. I've had the privilege of working with both of them. They know each other very well. You know, these blurred lines called nation-state lines, country-state lines, they really mean nothing when it comes down to food. One thing that we all have in common, we need to eat, and we need to eat nutritiously so we can start to counteract some of the issues that are going on. My other why, and I really want to pause here and just let this sink in. And it was part of that stat, you know, we're losing one farmer every 10 days due to unfortunate circumstances where they feel like they have no other options. All 5 of these hats, by the way, are people that I have known personally. And they're no longer with us because we created a system that they didn't feel like that they could continue to find a way out of. We created constraint points, and we created no other option for them other than to make some unfortunate decisions that had ricocheting effects. One just recently, I was in a retreat back in November, and as far back as November, which was really soon. My words are still coming to me early in the morning. I got a call from the wife of one of these individuals who said their husband had unfortunately made a very poor decision and an unfortunate decision. And it continues to drive me, and I hope it drives you too, because we really need to find new opportunities for farmers globally, but in Australia, where they don't feel like that's the only option. We need to come together as a community, and we need to use tools so that we can actually create new railways and new conversations. And so just let that sit with you for a moment, because though I don't like to be too dour in these conversations, it is a reality, and it is a reality that we need to face. Some of that is mental health, and some of that is just the environment that we've set up. And so we need to go out and fix it. But what if we could, beyond that, provide opportunities for a lot of the farmers that are on the call today, with access to better markets because of a platform like Grow, or reducing some of your compliance friction because of a platform like Grow, allowing you to future-proof because of a platform like Grow. Well, we can, and not only can we say that we can, we are doing that. We've got use cases, we've got farmers that are actually benefiting. If you stay tuned and come back to some of these conversations, our weekly Wednesday evening presentation, you're going to start to hear from some of these farmers that are actually, as we speak, taping and putting together some of the information on how Grow is benefiting their operations. So we're going to start to share that with you as well. This is allowing you to stay independent, and this is all about decentralization. We know that centralization was needed back in the day. I pick up after the World Wars. We needed to decentralize so that we could rebalance the world. But we've hit this tipping point. We hit it sort of late 70s, early 80s, and we've been on this downhill slope ever since of centralization and conglomeracy. And now we have a tool set. We have Web3, which I'll get into in a second, and we have the Grow platform as part of that Web3 industry, so that we can flip the script and start to decentralize the global and food industry. Who are you? Well, everyone on the call today is, I consider, a pioneer. I mean, you've shown up, you want to hear something different, you want to do something different. Probably you're like me, you're like, what the heck are you talking about, Web3 and blockchain? When I first started and got into this. But we're pioneers. Agriculturalists, I think, are pioneers. We've been asked to do a lot. We've been tasked to do a lot. We carry a lot of weight on our shoulders to feed our family, friends, and community, and then the global market space after that. And because of that pioneer mindset, I want you to lean into, because I think it's with that mindset that it allows us to have the head and heart to take on some of this new emerging technology and really understand that it's not as complicated or scary as we might think it is on the outset, but there is prosperity and there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we just need to walk down a slightly different path. But that puts us in a position that we might be a little bit different than all our friends and family, and what they're doing today, particularly our farm neighbors. And we need to continue to be pioneers. We need to continue to do things that might make us a black sheep in the community for a while, so that we have different outcomes. So our mission: nourishing people, animal, and the planets. It's a big task. It takes all of us. I can't do it alone. It takes a community. And really that allows us to make the farmers the hero of the story again. We need to hear from you. We need to talk to you. We need to include you in these conversations. And we need to give you the tools so that you can go out and better arm yourself and continue to do the amazing work that you do in growing and raising our foods and taking care of our ecological land. And for the consumers that are on the call, and that goes with the farmers, we all love to eat. And we need to really truly understand where our food comes from and how it was raised and grown and what nutritional factors that are in there. That conversation around yield, so it does play an important factor to our bottom line for those of us that are costing out our farm operations. needs to shift into how do we get more nutrient-dense food back into the hands of those that are eating it, us as consumers. And so we need to return confidence back to the consumer. We need less processed food, and this is really important. And I think Grow plays an important part of this, or within this component. All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about these crazy terms. Web 1, Web 2, Web 3. You may have heard of some of them. Web 1 is the reality that was where the World Wide Web started. Information at our fingertips, encyclopedias online. We could put in a prompt and you get information, not AI, but you could look things up and read it and digest it. And I thought that was wonderful. Then we started to get into the social component. You know, Facebook came around, and ICQ, if you're as old as me, you might remember some of those chat platforms. They were wonderful. They allowed us to connect on a global basis, so really shrinking our world so we could reconnect with people that we may have lost touch with. But very quickly, that moved into the world that we're pretty much in today, which is called the Web 2 space, where everything is monetized. Everyone wants your information. You put information into a platform, you pay a subscription service so that you can use that platform, and they're taking that information and they're selling it, aggregating it. Pretty much as everything is monetized, and it's all controlled by third-party entities. I use Uber as an example. I do a lot of travel, and Uber probably knows more about me than I know myself. They know every hotel I've stayed at. They know all the credit cards that I've used and deactivated. They know where my home address is. They've seen different pictures on me. You know, if they've changed my profile image. It's pretty scary. And they don't make any fuss about selling that information. They actually stick their hand in the air and they go, yeah, we'll sell it to the highest bidder. And that information is used, kicked back and used to market at us. It's used to really track us. It's used to understand what's going on and profiling us. And it's very, very scary. Well, Web 3 is really a coding language, but it really is the sovereignty or ownership world that we're moving into. And so platforms are now able to process information, but they're giving the ownership back to those that are using the platforms. So Grow is a great example of that. If you get involved with Grow, if you start using Grow, you actually have an ownership in that, and you have control of the data. You get to control where your data goes, who you're sharing it with, how far it goes, if you want to monetize it. So you get to benefit on it, not third parties. And that really changes the way we look at the world and the way we use data within our operations at the farm level, and all those other operations. You know, you might be using a rideshare program right now and when you go to the cities, and you know, if you had a rideshare program that actually was an ownership rideshare program where your data wasn't going to be sold to the highest bidder, and you know, you could trust that you could still get a ride and you know, plug it in, that would change the way you look at these platforms. Well, we can do the same thing at the farm level, at the farm gate. I know we have a ton of software platforms that we use. We can actually integrate some of that into Grow, and you can actually start to own your data again and really leverage that to your benefit. So the future is now. I mean, these tools that we're talking about, these solutions, you know, we've been beta testing them, we've been alpha testing them, we've launched them, we've got use cases, and it's really exciting that, you know, we have this technology at our fingertips. And so what I do on these conversations, I really just want to encourage you and bring opportunity for you to continue thinking about how a platform like Grow can benefit your operations, and set up one-on-one calls with myself and those that invited you to this call so that you can continue having rad conversations. I like to use this 80s word. I'm trying to bring it back with curiosity here. But it really is about having really rad conversations, because when you get into it, the light bulbs go off and you start to get excited. And that's what we want. We want you encouraged and excited because we have the technology. It's about getting it visible and, you know, getting people using it. And that's the exciting part. But if we don't do anything, we're going to fall into this graph. And this was a graph that professor way back when I went to university put on the whiteboard for us. It didn't look quite as colorful, but business is normal. You know, this is a thing economically. Business as normal continues on a downhill slope, and that really isn't very good. But what happens with technology, or what happens with disruptive innovation in general, is that we have this what we call bubble curve that happens, where everyone gets really excited, we start using it, and then it falls off because of all the centralization and lack of control or monetized systems, and it doesn't really bring the validity to changing the system, it's just a really neat, shiny object that we get attracted to. So I often call it the moth to a light bulb scenario. Well, Grow is a bit different. You notice we started, Web3 in general, we started down below. It's taken a long time for people to understand what we're building in this sovereignty world of Web3 and in Grow in particular. And then we move into really making impact. And today, actually, we sit right about here in our trajectory. We're past that red and blue curve, and we're actually moving into an opportunity, into a space where we're going to start to hit that hockey curve stick growth and really start to make some impact. And so this is an exciting time to think about getting involved and really plugging in to Grow. It helps you as farmers. Traceability. There's a lot of conversation about traceability. In fact, I think there's a grant that was just released in Australia looking for people that are using traceability programs to help them flourish. We have one. We have one in Grow, and not only does your data get to stay with you, but you still get all the benefits of the traceability to help the conversations all the way through the supply chain. You get rewarded for using it, and that's really, really neat. We'll get into that in a second. We have a protocol in Grow, and so Web3 comes with these protocols and how we use data. Our protocol, and it was all based around Bitcoin's protocol, by the way, if you want to do some research on that, and their protocol is called Proof of Work. Our protocol is proof of action. And so everything we do is around action-based results. And whether that is ecological data, benefits, whether that is using some of our technology platform software. If you're part of the Grow network and you're making positive actions and being a contributing member, you get rewarded for that. And we turn that into into a verbalization called proof of regenerative. Regenerative is really an end state that we all want to work towards. I don't want to over-index that term because I know we have a long way to go. But that proof of ecological work in your ecosystems, you get rewarded for doing the good work. Right now, it's very hard to get rewarded for that. In fact, you get told that you're not doing it well enough. You're probably, you've got a bunch of checklists coming down just so you can try to get a little bit of extra margin. And it's very, very difficult. Well, we want to make that less difficult. We want to create some easy button scenarios, and we want to reward you for these ethical practices that contribute to better, nutritious food into our supply chain. That's the end goal here. So future proofing against some of those policy shifts as well. It's another thing that the Grow platform gives you. And some diversification of your balance sheet, some off-farm assets or other revenue streams that really create opportunities for you to weather the storm, as it were. The other thing I want to talk about really quickly, digital assets, real world assets that happen on the farm. This is going to be the next largest asset class that hits our financial market space. And us as agriculturalists can take advantage of that today. We can take advantage of that because of the Grow platform. And it's really, really exciting. If you're potentially a whiskey brewer, if you create whiskey, and we have a still here at the farm that my father tends to, so I lean into it a little bit. But there's a lot of upfront costs, and then you wait 5, 6, 7, 8 years before you actually recoup any of those costs. That's a little bit in the processing, and but on-farm operation potentially, or an enterprise. Well, with Grow, we can actually create digital assets, and so you can actually create some financial mechanisms to offset some of those inherent upfront costs, get people really engaged, and start to use this world of digitized or tokenized real-world assets. And it really is going to change the way we think about wonderful products like whiskey, if you like to drink. I'm not pushing it for those that don't, or any other enterprise on farm. And that could be processing meat for those that can, or anything else that happens, in terms of processing the things that we're growing or raising. And so the digital asset class is wonderful. There's other things with the digital asset class, such as renewable energies on farm and other components of infrastructure that we can start to look at monetizing, as well as your cattle or the things that you're growing, metric tons of grain in your bin. We can actually create the digital twin and create some tokenized assets out of these real world components. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. I'm just going to high level it, but just remember, tokenized real world assets, it's really the next emerging component. And it's probably the thing that I lean into the most when we think about diversifying your balance sheets. So that's That's what we talk about. You know, if that extra room under your collar, that breathing room, is going to allow you to have a little more peace of mind, be able to sleep at night, you know, be with your family, and not, you know, thinking about going out and doing chores at all hours of the night. And we create some diversification, some resiliency in your financial models. I think, again, we're moving towards the right direction, and we're really starting to leverage what Grow can do. And then it's greenfield opportunities. You know, we can really start to think outside of the box, the proverbial box, on how we flex and leverage Grow. But let's start with just creating that diversification and start seeing how that plays into the benefit of your balance sheet, which really, we know that everything in agriculture comes down to the economics. If it doesn't make economical sense, it's probably not something you want to take on. And that's why I start there. And that's why I emphasize that so much. The Grow blockchain, I want to talk about this really quickly. I do want to leave some time at the end here for some questions, but the Grow blockchain runs on something called nodes. I want you to remember this term, write it down, say it out loud, N-O-D-E. Nodes are what make blockchain different from servers. Pretty much the short and simple scenario of that. The node infrastructure that we have, and we had an amazing visionary behind our nodes. He said, well, I don't want these nodes running on a central server in somebody's data center somewhere. I want to be able to use these to decentralize our own community. So we didn't build Grow. So myself and the co-founders could be, you know, leaders and benefit off of it and be a central entity. We built it to give it away. We built it so the community can run it. And I'm very happy to say today we're there. We've got 3 different councils that, you know, are voting on. I've moved from part of the founding team into what we call a managing council. So I've been asked to continue to have conversations like this and take my knowledge base and use Grow. But I'm just a community member in the Grow platform, just like some of the people on the call here today. I'm no different hierarchy. I just happen to have, you know, some council responsibilities so I can continue to carry this mission far and wide. And that is the beauty of what the Grow platform provides. But it all runs on this decentralized node infrastructure. So these nodes are a piece of software. They're an appreciating asset. They've got capabilities of creating some decentralized finance. It's the first time you hear that, the Grow token. And they're the portal for you to store your data on our blockchain. And so we've created it to be super simple. You don't have to be super knowledgeable technology-wise. We can help you set it up on your laptop. We can help you put it in a virtual private server. But this was really the changing point. It actually put us in a black sheep scenario in the Web3 community because no one was doing this. No one was taking nodes and actually allowing people to own them and creating benefit off of this. We also think about this as an off-farm asset. So, you know, that's another component and benefit to this node. Real-world assets, I just talked about that, helps diversify. We can tokenize these real-world assets. Token utility. I believe in a world where we're going to have decentralized finance alongside our traditional finance. So the Aussie dollar with decentralized finance. We use the Grow token. It's a wonderful appreciating decentralized finance token. And just like a lot of things today, I mean, if you look at the Aussie dollar, it pretty much is used in a digital format anyway. You know, we're either online, we're wiring it. Very seldom do you find people with, you know, paper bills or coins these days. You know, we're either on plastic cards or we're doing it digitally. The issue with any traditional finance, and a lot of it is classified as fiat, is that it's still controlled by central entities that we don't have any say. You know, they decide through executive orders, you know, how much extra they're going to print and how much inflation is going to, you know, cost based on some, you know, hedged assumptions on what the market's going to look like, the GDP. Well, within the decentralized finance, and specifically the Grow token, we are based on utility. So the use of it and the appreciating factor of it. And so it's not you own it, there's no central entity, and there's a finite amount of it. And that's beautiful. And so everything we do within decentralized finance, it comes with a finite amount. Now, we have 50 billion Grow tokens that are going to be available in the lifetime cycle. I'll get into that in some one-on-ones if you want to explore that. But that really allows us to stay away from creating inflation into oblivion. And that is positive to us as individuals, but farm operations. And so all of this brings together why the Grow blockchain is so powerful. Our team, a wealth of knowledge and expertise. Our community, a wealth of knowledge and expertise. And then wonderful governance structure that we have. It's called the decentralized governance framework. And it is very, very powerful, and really allows us to have these councils. We have the managing council, the Genesis Council, and the community council. And the idea is that as community members come in, they start to become part of the council, they move up to Genesis, and eventually you'll be part of the managing council, and I'll just be continuing to farm in the snow. And that is wonderful. So here are some of the services that we've built on the blockchain. We've got an on-chain consultancy. If you're a farm operation on this call and you are paying a consultant right now, wonderful. I love that relationship. I love that you're exploring outside support, but we also have an on-chain consultancy. And instead of spending dead money towards a consultant in hopes that you're going to get an ROI based on their knowledge base, you could put your money towards owning some of these nodes and still access all that knowledge base. So it's just a way to think about the repositioning of the dollars. And by the way, those dollars are going to be better spent in terms of appreciating versus just dead money, a one-time spend. And so think about that. Again, I love the relationships we carve with these subject matter experts, but we're bringing Grow so that we can better support your financial outcomes and start to change the agri-food space. And so we got to start thinking a little bit differently about how we use our dollars right out of the gate. From Tracer, I mentioned that. We've got the traceability. We've got an on-chain commerce platform, both B2B and B2C. So we've got some companies, and I am looking for more agriculture businesses within Australia to join us for the B2B, but we're using the Grow token to facilitate trade. So consumers can buy direct from farmers, and then farmers can buy direct from agribusinesses using the Grow token, which means you're less Aussie dollar out of the pocket, using some of this decentralized finance and start to really shake up your financial portfolios. We deal with ecological credits, carbon, methane avoidance, water, biodiversity. We do it slightly different. I know there's a lot of regulation around that. Some people believe in it, some people don't. I don't want to over index or spend too much time here, but if you want to get involved in that or you think there's benefit, we can help you out and we can streamline the process and really create some wonderful traction there. And then we have it in a beta version right now. It's just gone into some new iterations, but we have that sample of how we tokenize real world assets. So we're actually tokenizing cows, allowing people to own the digital version of a real world cow. And this is creating some great opportunities for those that are in the livestock industry. On our platform, we also have 17,000 irrigated acres between some really great crops. We have some more crops on there as well. Some pulses and cereals that have just come on, some produce, some large produce producers. We have about 25,000 head of cattle between dairy and the ranch world. And this could be cow-calf, this could be replacement heifers. There's a mixture in there when it gets into livestock, but we're continuing to increase the volume of that world, and we're also getting into the equestrian industry, and we also have other ruminants as part of our chain. We got about 10,000 acres of forested land, so we do talk about land stewards. So if you're somebody that maybe has got more of a permaculture tilt, or you're just wanting to steward your land more effectively, we certainly want to help you out. The same principles apply here, and the same opportunities apply. Slightly different factors, but they still are very important. That traceability platform, by the way, our biggest use case was with a little company called Amazon and one of our largest production operations in America called Royal Family Farms. And we actually create a very nice visual pictorial information. So if you have followed any sports in America, there was an arena in Washington State. It was where the Sonics basketball team played back in the day. And it was bought out by Amazon, and they renamed it Climate Pledge Arena. In Climate Pledge Arena, the executive chef said, I only want to bring in food that I can trace and I know the source of origin, underpinning the regenerative state. And so they had a really hard time finding beef that they could actually qualify that knew where it came from. Well, lo and behold, Royal Family Farms was working with Grow. We connected, and using Farm Tracer, we were able to really win them over. And it was a great feather in the capabilities of what Farm Tracer can do and what the Grow platform can do. We reduce due diligence, we created confidence. And so today, if you go to that sports arena, if you ever travel over to the States and you buy meat, it's coming from Royal Family Farms, but you get a QR code and you can actually trace source of origin. Amazon loves it, consumers love it, and the executive chef is a big fan. And so they signed a big contract with that operations. We've also processed a lot of ecological credits. We've validated over $27 million of methane avoidance from these wonderful beasts over here. We've done soil carbon. We've also gotten into agroforestry projects in Peru and in Canada, and some maple trees. We really just create a rapid pace. I want you to understand that I have a lot of knowledge in carbon. I scaled the machine. It's not about just driving things into the ground. It's a cycle. Carbon respires out of the ground. Those of you that grow or raise food understand this. Methane isn't scary. It's not killing the world. There's a water component. There's a cycle here. I talk a lot about that, and I do a lot of education. That's why this image is here, because it's very, very important to understand, all the different terms that are being thrown around, and really what that means in terms of the gases, and what that does to our microbiology, our microbiome in the soil. And that's really where we need to pay attention. There is benefit to hold in carbon, but there's also fossilized carbon that's been down there that we don't want to disturb. And so, when we think about mining, we think about other extractive pushing dirt, to build our systems. We have to think about how that affects the cycles of these processes. And all we're doing is trying to give you some leverage point with the data, because we can actually measure it. And whether you choose to monetize that or not is totally up to you, but we can actually quantify what's going on with some of these cycles. The Nourish Marketplace, again, I'm looking for new vendors, and that could be vendors. You might have product that you're processing, maybe byproducts, maybe you're making tallow, maybe you're doing some soaps, maybe you've got dandelion tea, whatever the case is. You might have an on-farm enterprise and you want to sell direct to consumer. The Nourish Mart is a great spot for you. If you're an agribusiness, or if you've got an agribusiness friend, bring them onto the Nourish Mart. All it does is continues to build visibility and awareness for those businesses and your on-farm operation. But for consumers, if we get them closer to farmer, that is amazing. And that really allows us to get good, nutritious food back into the hands of consumers and cuts out a lot of the unnecessary intermediaries. Tokenized cows, kind of what it looks like. When this platform really starts to drive into Australia here, we'll get deep into it. But really it allows you to use another new term, probably NFT. You might have heard of it, but we use this tool as a way to create the digital assets. We're global. We're working in numerous countries, and we're really making a big effort to expand all the way across Australia. So how can you be involved? Well, we have this really cool thing called a digital wallet. If you're doing any online banking today, it's no harder than, it's actually a lot easier in some cases than dealing with some of your online banking. But this digital wallet is your wallet. So it's self-sovereign. We call it self-custodial, and it's free. It's free for you to set up. You can set it up. We can show you how to do that. And then you can book a call with me. We can go through that. We can show you how to use it, and we can show you what it means. We've got a little bit of a store. You can find the nodes on there, and I might even give you some free Grow tokens if you show up for a meeting. So I highly recommend grabbing your free Grow wallet. We'll send you the links. We'll post them on here, and then grab my calendar link and book a one-on-one with me. It could be a 15-minuter, it can be a 30-minuter, it could be an hour, whatever you need. It takes a little bit to translate everything that I've talked about. I know it's a lot. It's kind of like drinking through a fire hose. We're really excited to have these conversations. I am, and some of the other managing council members are, and even our community members that are on this call. So get in touch with them, and then get in touch with me, and let's see how we can help your operations with the Grow platform. So thanks so much for listening. I will wrap up the presentation here. We're about 10 minutes to the hour. We're leaving us some time for some questions.
So great, Neil. I'm just going to pop up your Calendly link here for anyone who wants to. If you want to click directly on the screen there, that button will take you to Neil's Calendly link, and you can directly book a call at one of the times that he's got available there. So I'll just leave that up for a moment, and then
I'd highly recommend that too, Jen. I jumped on a call with Neil, and it was supposed to be a 45-minute call, and it ended up, I think, an hour and a half or something. But as farmers, we sometimes we don't want to share what's going on in our place in case somebody's doing it better than us, or but jumping on a call with Neil and having Neil's vast experience and his understanding of right where we are and the challenges that farmers face, I just can't recommend it highly enough to get on a call and flesh some stuff out with him.
Yeah, fabulous. Charlie, want to add anything in?
Jen, I'm unmuted. Yeah, I just wanted to back up what Stephen said, and it's been fantastic to work with Neil so far on this journey. But, you know, get the questions that you need, or, you know, we've got to do something. And I've been writing notes as we've gone along tonight. I mean, 50 billion grow tokens, you know, there's a maximum, and that's exciting. I don't think we fully understand what this is really all about, and I just want to encourage people to step into it and do something, because this whole world's going to change, I believe. You know, has a huge impact on changing the industry massively. You know, and the challenge, like someone said to me during the week, you know, if you're not growing your business 10% per year, you're going backwards. Well, I mean, we won't get heavily into that, but a lot of people in agriculture resign themselves to just existing. And this is a way we can really grow our businesses through the tokenisation, and I believe through tokenisation and what we have on offer here.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd mention to that, and I think that's wonderful, Charlie. For some of us, you know, we might be a mid or towards the end of our agriculture life cycle, you know, and thinking about retirement, or, you know, how do we pass the farm on to maybe our kids or somebody within our family. Grow is a great spot to store some of that knowledge base. And, you know, I know a lot of farmers, my father was the same. He kept everything up here in the proverbial vault that the good Lord gave to us. And we need to extract some of that data for two reasons. One, we don't know everything that they know, and so it's great to, you know, capture that knowledge base, but store it somewhere that is tamper-proof. But for the younger generation, they're so into technology, and, you know, placing Grow as part of that operational process and almost allowing them to get really excited about this new emerging technology is going to start to attract new young agriculturalists back into agriculture. And we need that. We need that influx. We don't need centralized control where we have one farm entity that's starting to buy up lots of farms and create one central large conglomerate. We need a lot more agriculturalists back. And so if we can leverage Grow, if you're thinking about, well, this seems a bit, you know, large and, you know, a bit scary, and how does this plug in? Think about that legacy that you want to leave your farm, and whether you're passing that on or selling it. How do you attract the young generation back? And Grow is one of those opportunities, and it really does excite them. They understand all these terms, you know, they get it. They understand tokenization. They're already playing with decentralized finance more than we know. And so I really encourage you to think about it from both perspectives. The reality of today, how does it help me? And then the long-term play in terms of how we continue to leverage it.
And Neil, you talk about that practical application of having, you know, storing that information in your mind. But, you know, like in reality, I lost my father's father, my grandfather, when I was about 12. So never received any of his knowledge. Then when I was about 21, I lost my dad. So never received any more of that knowledge beyond there. Nobody did, right? It's gone forever. Only what I gained before that point in time. This has the power to store that, so that, and it mightn't be the next generation that decide to come back onto the farm. It might be, you know, a third generation, or a relative or something like that. So, and it's just, the idea of it is just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, cheers.
The thing is, Stephen, if we don't find a way to store and manage all of the information and the knowledge and the wisdom, then big corporations will just own and operate our entire food industry, and that it will be forever lost. And then what do we do as humanity? And so that graph that you showed, Neil, you know, that where if we carry on the way we are, that red line, it just goes in that downward direction. You know, it's a really important reminder. Like something has to change. Farmers can't keep going the way they're going. Consumers can't keep eating the way they're eating. The chronic disease and obesity and everything is going through the roof, and it's all due to malnourishment. We have to turn this around. We really do. And so we just need to invite as many people to this conversation as possible. And I know as we get the right people listening and learning, that their contribution will be so incredible as well, because we just have to bring this community together. And it's just a tiny group. We just start here, but as we just keep opening the door to conversations and asking people to be just open to joining in, then I think we can get that graph moving the right way.
Yeah. And for all of you on the call here, we're going to be hosting these as many Wednesdays as we can, foreseeable future at the moment. I highly encourage you to bring a friend, show up again. I've heard, I probably add a few new things every time, and, we're going to be sharing some case studies. So show up a few times. It takes a few, times and some conversation in between to really allow it to sink in. But I encourage you to bring a friend, bring a few friends. But seek out those, as you're going to the grocery stores, you're going to the restaurants, as you're going out into your farm communities, and you're looking at talking to agribusinesses and, the supply chain, the messy middle that's there. Just ask them if they'd be interested to hear something new. And yeah, it could be a bit wild, but encourage them to join this conversation on Wednesday evenings and just have a good listen. And poke holes in it. I like people that are skeptical. I like people that want to pinprick it, because that's really where we get clarity. That's really where we start to realize that this is real and it's here, and it can make a difference.
Yeah. Well, Neil, thank you so much for getting up again at 3 a.m. to hang out with us. And I know you've got some snow to shovel now, so probably need another coffee and you can get to it. And thank you everyone for joining us on your Wednesday evening, and we will see you again next week, same time, and hopefully we can gradually build up the size of these calls.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Good night.